Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammāṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. So, as I mentioned to everybody, this is my last talk for this Range Retreat, and it's a reasonably good Range Retreat, nice and peaceful for most people, and always, some busyness around, some things to do. But hopefully everyone realizes that one balances out the opportunities which one has for seclusion, and the opportunities one has to serve. And when one finds the right balance for that, then the path gets very, very powerful and very, very strong. And every individual is different to how much you can give, how much you need for seclusion. And of course, this is also not just the last talk I give before the Range Retreat ends, at least in this venue to the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. But it is also just the first talk I give after my 2-week retreat. It was only 6 days ago I finished that retreat. And I must admit that in my life it's like 6 years ago I finished the retreat. There's so much you have to do since that time. But I value those opportunities to be still, to be peaceful. And it may be because, I know that they can be so rare to have 15 days just to meditate and no responsibilities at all. That when you have such sort of a long free time, but it's rare for you as a senior monk, you always make the best use of it. And the best use of it, and I found this quite a few times with myself and with others, and the simile which comes up, which is something which was mentioned in Ajahn Brahm's lovely Dhamma of doing the coronavirus book. And that story of having travelled all day. I remember this was my 6th year as a monk, and I'd spent a lovely few days in this monastery in Amphoe, just north of Chiang Mai. It was in that monastery that, funny story, on Wesak Day, I was the only Western monk there, and so on Wesak Day, it's a beautiful monastery, nice and peaceful, had a few caves there, and really amazingly good food. It was a rich little settlement in Amphoe. And that's rich by most standards in Thailand. And that because I was Western, an only Western monk there, of course, sometimes you stood out. You were different. So when it came to Wesak, I had all these people being bored with the senior monks' Dhamma talk. And for them, it wasn't that, actually it was after the Dhamma talk, because then they came up to me. And that was that story where they kept coming up and asking, I thought, teach some Dhamma. How are you? Where are you from? And the questions afterwards. What did your father do? What did your mother do? How many brothers and sisters have you got? And that was it. And once they had that information, then they left. And then someone else came up and asked the same question. Where are you from? How many brothers and sisters have you got? What does your father do? Where are you from? And after a while, as a monk, you try and be of service to others, but you do learn your skillful means of trying to escape from talk, which was no kind, but if you want to ask some Dhamma questions, fine. So I used the old technique of saying I need to go to the toilet. So I went to the toilet. That was true, but then I never came back. I went into the cave, And that was that story, went into one of the deepest caves which I remember from there, because I'd explored them all. And amazing, the air was good in this deep cave. Maybe it was because you were meditating, you didn't use so much air. Went in this deep cave, sat down, had a flashlight, turned it off, and thought, I'd escaped. And it's part of my life, I've seen this happen so often. When I try to escape from something and try and control things, it all goes wrong. So what happened next? It was only 5 minutes, not long. And I could hear some noises coming. And after the noises, I could see the light on the end of the what do you call it, the turning of the cave. And then I saw, please excuse me if you've heard this story before, but I like telling it because it was exactly as it happened. It was just quite funny afterwards, because I saw these two heads turn around. Oh no, sorry, one head come around the corner. And with their hurricane lantern, which is what they were using to explore the cave, they saw me sitting quietly at the end of the cave. And immediately he sprang back. And I could hear them talking. There's a ghost at the end of the cave. There's a ghost. I've seen it, a real ghost, a ghost at the end of the cave. I said, there can't be. Yeah, there is. Now, of course, Thai people are extremely afraid of ghosts. And so two heads turned around the corner to have a quick look, really quick, have a quick peek and then go back again. And I heard them discuss, no, it's not a ghost, it's the Western monk. No, it's a ghost. No, it's a Western monk. And at that time, of course, you started trying to control things and say, it's a ghost, it's a ghost. And of course, then they came around the corner again and they looked a bit longer. And they said, oh, that's a Western monk. So there's about a dozen of them came in and sat right next to me, or right in front of me, in the end of this cave. And they bowed 3 times out of respect. It's quite wonderful to see a monk at the end of the cave meditating. Then they asked me just where am I from and how many brothers and sisters have I got. And I thought, you just cannot escape. And I asked them afterwards, what are you coming in the end of this cave for? They said, we got so bored with the sermon, we decided to go explore the caves. Why my cave? We don't know. I'm sure it was like Mara sent them there. And it seemed to be every time I tried that to control my life and just to escape, it's like, somehow or other life follows you. And of course it was after that, the day after I decided that, getting too well known in this place, I decided to leave and just go to another monastery. But to get the bus, you had to walk a long way to the road and then wait in this bus. And they put me in the frontmost seat, which was very squashed. It was maybe big enough for 2 small people. They had 3 people in there. I was squashed right against the window for hours until we finally got to this monastery where I was intending to go to. And when I got there, about 5:45 in the afternoon, or evening, whichever you call it, and then just enough time to see the senior monk to pay respects. And then they said, you're just in time. Because every evening it's a monastery rule that we sit meditation for 4 hours. In the book it said 3, but I'm pretty sure it was 4. And so I didn't have time for a cup of tea, not even a shower, just to splash some water on my face, put my things down in the hut which they gave me, and then turn up to the room for 4 hours meditation. One thing I remember from that, you're really tired, exhausted after travelling, and dirty, you hadn't had a wash all day. But that you had to join in the local schedule. And so I remembered that you had to get, to do your meditation properly. There's no opportunity, just 4 hours, plenty of time, just relax a little bit, and I really sort of focused in the sense of letting go quickly. Not using force, because I knew, from experience, 4-hour meditation is a long time. And if you mess around, your sort of legs will start to ache, you'll be restless, and if you don't get a little bit of samadhi quickly to actually get you into samadhi state, stillness state, it's not going to work. you're going to suffer a lot. And because, it's my Dutanga year, Tudong year, and just had no responsibilities, doing lots of meditation. My meditation was really great. So it was really quite easy. You sit down there and just relax your body, make sure your body's okay. I always start with that, just the posture. And my posture, it's not always the same. Especially where I put my hands and just where you cross your legs. Always, ask the body, what do you want to do now? Which leg on top of which leg, which hand on top of which hand. And just how relaxed are you? Lean back, lean forward. How do you feel? And then just checking the body. At that time I didn't really understand why, but I did understand that it worked for me. And I understood why later on, because I was generating my mindfulness, awareness, together with kindness. I didn't know the word kindfulness then. That was invented much later on. That's what I was being with my body. I was being kindful to it. And because I knew I had 4 hours in front of me, I couldn't mess around. I had to do it properly. And so sometimes when you put your back's against the wall like that, sometimes it's amazing what you can do. I found that anyway. That when there's, if you don't do it properly, you get into trouble. So it's like people doing their homework, not a couple of days before, not even the night before, but doing it on the bus on the way to school in the morning, which I did a couple of times. But, in this particular case, you had to do it, so you did do it. And get into body relaxed, mind, just knowing how to just relax it, make it peaceful, so you become aware of the breath. And all of these things, not doing it. That was the one thing which I learned from Ajahn Chah, to take away, that effort thing. It appears to other people like effort. How can you sit still for so long? How do you hold your body so motionless? And you don't hold it. You let it be, and it's motionless by itself. That's the only way you can meditate for. It wasn't 4 hours in the end, because they rang the bell early, 3 hours and 45 minutes. And I was enjoying myself. So, I was just told them off afterwards, but with a smile. I wasn't really telling them off. That 3 hours, 45 minutes was great. So just before 10 o'clock. So anyway, what it taught me, if you really have to, that you can. I sometimes wondered about that. Other times that you're in a monastery, and some monastery somewhere, and somebody else had a really good meditation and they told you about it. I said, I just really got into this deep meditations on nimittas or even jhanas or something. And then you get motivated. What? It was like some mudito, the Brahma Vihara, of being so happy that someone else could do it, but then also, well, if they can do it, why not me? So always those evenings, those afternoons, I remember just my meditation improved. Because there's this type of laziness which I've noticed in most people, including me. If you don't have to, you don't. Leave it till tomorrow. Take it easy. But if you really want to do it, why not? And you just know exactly, just using the wisdom power, the path. In the sense, I remember Ajahn Brahm saying this, it does take effort, but it's not the effort which you use to build 6 kutis. It's a totally different form of effort, the effort of restraint. And having known that, done that for so many years, that that just from that monastery, that's where you went up to, that monastery up in the tea plantation. And that tea plantation there, again, just getting very restless. But then just telling my mind, okay, from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. every afternoon, you can think whatever you like, even the most unmonkish thoughts. And that story, that's also in that book somewhere anyway. I think it's in Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond. That for that time in the afternoon, when I let my mind think any fantasy, sexuality, romance or whatever, my mind was so peaceful. I watched every breath effortlessly. I wasn't doing it. I just was sitting there and just watching my breath. And this morning, not this morning, so yesterday morning, I just, told the jhana groovies, what you're really doing here is you're socially distancing yourself from your meditation, from thoughts, from everything. Meditation is not yours, because when you're close up to things, you get involved. When you socially distance, as it was, keep your 2 meters or 1.5 meters distance from somebody, then you do not get infected by what's happening. You don't get upset by thoughts. You don't get, it's working, great, and get excited by whatever's happening in your meditation. Basically, you learn how to let go, to renounce, to be free of control. And that was things which, when I look back upon all those wonderful times of meditation, all those great times of peace, it's always the case. It was when I totally let go, when I stopped controlling. And that's why that during my 2-week retreat recently, I just, it's my habit now to go and sit there in that cave and just get my body nice and comfortable, get my peaceometer nice and peaceful, and then let go and see what happens. It really is a letting go, seeing what happens. The controller, the Ajahn Brahm, just starts to disappear and vanish. And then during the times when I was on my walking path, and I started to think and rather reflect, what is the problem? And one of the problems with my teachings to others is that you say to people, make peace, be kind, be gentle. But that first word in those 3 words of right, what I call motivation, the second factor of the Eightfold Path. Now those words, if you don't get them correct, their meaning accurate, they can cause you a lot of difficulties. And it wasn't actually making peace and letting the status quo be. It was actually renouncing. It's like the word is nekama sankappa. And I realized that's what I was doing, but that's not what I was teaching others. You don't make peace with things and let them be and just sit there, making peace with pain or peace with tiredness or peace with things. You learn how to let go, to renounce. And what are you actually renouncing? And what you're renouncing, is not the sloth and torpor, or the restlessness, or the thinking, or the disappointment, or the excitement. You're not letting that be. You're not making peace with that at all. It's not what you're experiencing, the object of your senses, which you're making peace with, or you're letting go. It's the thing which is holding all of these things. That holder, that owner, that thing which does the stuff. Not the object, but the subject of your experience. That is what you renounce. And of course, the story so many years ago, trying to find similes for this, to explain it to myself as well as explain it to others. I use that simile of the hand, because I notice my hand even now, just holding my robes, moving this way, moving it that way. If you're by your desk and you're writing an email, your hand picks up something or puts it down again. And sometimes I remember my teachers saying, stop fidgeting. And it was hard to stop moving your hand and stop fidgeting. It's just what the mind and the body does. And to make the point, in many of the talks which I give, the big public talks, I open my eyes and just say, there you can see, Venerable is scratching his face, someone else is just adjusting their robe, someone else is just adjusting their feet. And sometimes these things we don't even realize we're doing these things because we've got accustomed to the body moving all the time. And it's the same with the hand. And it became obvious to me, that's what a hand does. It picks things up. And how can you stop the hand picking things up? You can actually just focus on it, be mindful of it, and tell it, stop picking things up, stop it. But after a while it'll pick something up, it'll move. Because that's its nature. It's the nature of the hand to pick things up. And so that's when I got that simile, quite a sort of a gross simile, but still I thought it was a good one at the time. The only way to stop picking things up is to cut the hand off. If you haven't got a hand, you can't pick things up. And so, from that simile, I thought that means the sense of self, the I, the doer, the thing which is trying to achieve something in meditation, the thing which is trying to get there or get somewhere. And please excuse me, but I wanted to try and give a serious talk, but I just can't do serious sometimes. So now we get the simile, which I've given so many times, and that was the simile of the artist. The artist here in Perth who had a motorbike accident, and when he came out of the surgery they told him that he'd damaged his hand so badly they had to amputate his hand. And the hand which they amputated was the hand he used for painting. And that was his life, that was his love, that's who he was a painter. When he realized he would not be able to paint anymore because that hand which he trained was so sensitive to things and became a great painter, artist, he realized what's the point of living. So he went up the elevator in one of these big office blocks in the middle of Perth, found his way into an empty room and came onto the veranda, was about to sort of step off the veranda and fall to his death, to commit suicide. What's the point of living when the thing which he loved the most to paint was no longer possible for him? He cut off his hand. But then he saw on the road down below, there was a pedestrian who had not just one hand missing, both arms were missing, and saw him dancing up and down St. George's Terrace for joy. He was dancing without any arms at all. And he thought, I wanted to kill myself just because I lost one hand. There's a fellow just so happy with no arms at all. And he realized that he didn't need to commit suicide anymore. So he ran to the elevator, got down straight away, ran towards the person who saved his life, and put his arm and one arm without a hand around his body, gave him a big hug. Thank you, you saved my life. And the armless man said, why? Well, I said, and he told my story. I was a painter, had a motorbike accident, lost my hand, and I was about to sort of kill myself, and I saw you, no arms at all, just dancing up and down for happiness. You saved my life. And the armless man said, Sir, I wasn't dancing for happiness. I've got an itchy bum, and that's the only way I can scratch it. So please excuse me. But on the real story, sometimes I give talks with very deep meanings, and sometimes that's all people remember, the jokes. What do you talk about? Oh, this harmless man. But anyhow, of course later on I found that simile was in the Buddha's suttas. Buddha got there first, obviously. But that started to give me a lot of insight into understanding just why we pick things up and what stops us getting samadhi, what stops us being still, what stops us having happiness. Because we're letting go of the wrong end of attachment. Attachment has to have two ends to it. What you're attaching to and the thing doing the attaching. And what you're attaching to is not the problem. It is a problem, but not the problem. The problem is the thing doing the attaching. And if you can see that, what is, getting out of meditation? What is trying? What is trying to achieve something? What is trying to get some goals? What is embarrassed? What is ashamed? What is this? So you look at the other end. And sometimes when the Buddha talked about yoniso manasikara, one of the two causes for becoming a stream winner, otherwise meaning one of the two causes for seeing non-self. One of those causes, yoniso manasikara, is like going back, not going outwards, not because of what's going to happen, but why? Why do I pick up things? What does the picking up? You can see this, you don't need to make a philosophical treatise about this, but just you can know for yourself. There's something inside of you which always wants to do things, which always judges and gets you to do something better next time. Always wants to improve, always feels ashamed and tries to lie sometimes to yourself and to others when it goes wrong. Why? What is that thing, that metaphorical hand, which when you're sitting down meditating, you've got nothing to do? Why do you do things? Why do you think about things which you don't need to think about? And when you start to see that thing which starts to pick things up and do things, you find that what feeds it and makes it strong is this idea of attaining things and getting things and wanting things. Every time you want something, it gives this hand in the metaphorical quotation marks, it gives it more strength and power. The more times you struggle and strive and want, whether you achieve or not, the hand becomes more real, more strong, more prominent in your meditation. And you think you're getting somewhere because you're stronger. But all that's getting stronger is just the hand of Mara, the doer. Which is one of the reasons why, when I do my 15-day retreat, I don't do it. Just go in there and, I'm a little smarter than I give myself credit for, because I'd say, okay, first 3 days, just relax. I've been working hard, just relax. Don't even try and do anything. I do that and get my best meditations. So it's a sense of that I'm tricking myself, but I know what I'm up to, just from the very beginning, not to try and achieve anything. And to weaken that part of me, actually the thing which I call me, which causes all the trouble, which judges, worries about attaining, and even thinks that attaining things is something interesting and useful. In all your births, all your lives, how many things have you attained? What happens when you die? Most of those things vanish. And just want you to be hungry and thirsty the next time. It's on Sunday and Monday, I went over to Albany to visit Venerable Muda, who's doing a really great job. And I haven't got my eyes closed. It's hard work being a single monk down there, but it's amazing just how many people see him and visit him and just revere him. When you're in a monastery with many other monks, you're one way. But when you're by yourself, especially given responsibility, it's amazing how many monks actually grow up into that responsible position and become really quite impressive. So I was quite impressed with what I saw and what I heard from other people about what he was up to. But when I was there and giving talks, that was just one of the things I talked about. Because the audience, some have been practicing for a long time, mostly Westerners. And it was interesting to actually tell them something which stopped them. And I remember those. Sometimes you have moments when you give talks You lead people down into some very deep Dhamma, and they get it. And everyone stops and looks at you, and you realise, wow, you've actually uncovered something for them they've never seen before. And some of the ways of doing that is you almost like trick them into not realising what's coming next. And the story which I used, I've told a few people here since coming back, was the story of the 2 bad curses, the 2 worst curses you can give somebody from the Middle East. And I heard this in an airport one day, just sitting down and just someone talking to me. The worst curse they can give you in the Middle East, and most of you know this one, may the fleas of 1,000 camels infest your armpits. Imagine saying that to somebody. And if it's in, say, Saudi Arabia, you know that how many fleas a camel has. What's it like if you get the fleas in your armpits? Oh, that's terrible. But that's only number 2. And because they were laughing at that, because it's a funny little curse, but they said the worst curse is, may you get everything you want as soon as you want it. And everyone went quiet, because they realised this was a teaching which they hadn't heard before, and what they could recognise. That sometimes it's not the goal, it's not the achievement, it's not getting to the golden throne, because there's always something to do after that. And for some people, once they get what they wanted and strived for, it's not the end. They have to go somewhere else and get something else. And the reason is because it's not the throne, the achievement, the goal which they were searching for. They were just addicted to wanting. We want to do things. And that is our big, deep attachment. Always wanting to want. The desire to desire. And sometimes you look at that in your own life, and so many times, you try and you fail. You don't learn to give up. Stop trying. So, no, it's not trying which is the wrong. It's not wanting which is the wrong, even though we just chanted that. The second noble truth, wanting is the cause of suffering. And you hear that every day. No, well, yeah, maybe, but that's not really understanding it. If you want the right things, if you want like nimittas and jhanas and enlightenment, want to save the whole world, that's good. Sometimes people think. I don't know why they think like that. They hear it so clearly, directly from a Buddha. But then afterwards, you learn that it doesn't work. So you learn that wanting doesn't work. And after a while, you just let go of wanting. You renounce. And how you let go of the wanting, you renounce the thing which wants. And sometimes it's hard to put a name on that, to describe it. This end of the hand, which you're cutting off, the thing which does the stuff, the thing which wants, that which creates. Once you can see that, know that, and see just how it's always wanting attention. It always wants to do something. If you stop wanting and are still and peaceful, it feels so threatened. It's like the you, which you feel you are, is just being challenged deeply. Just sit still and do nothing. You don't have to get jhana, you don't have to get nimitta, you don't have to do anything. Just sit still and do nothing. How many people could do that? Should be the easiest thing in the world, doing nothing. But something stops you. What is that which stops you? What is it when you're sitting down, even sometimes it's weird. People get into delightful breath, beautiful breath, having a wonderful time. Okay, enough. Then you get up. Why? Your legs aren't sore. You don't have to go to the toilet. You don't have to go to lunch. And sometimes you'll notice that what is making you move is you're being challenged. Because if it's working, you didn't do it. This is not created by this thing. You didn't pick it up. The thing has let go. It's renounced. And that renunciation, that first factor of that right intention or right motivation, as I prefer it to be called, is actually happening. And it scares you. So you want to go and do something. So sometimes if I told you, okay, yeah, once you get the breath, now watch the breath, very long breath, very short breath, and don't mess around. You've got to do about 50 long breaths, and then do 50 short breaths, and then 50 breaths in the middle. And not 49, not 50, no, whole 50. And then once you get that, then you can imagine the breath with piti sukha. And I say it's rushing along a bit, isn't it? You can see the whole of the breath from very beginning to end. You know that sometimes when I give these meditation retreats and I talk to people like this, you can see them, they're really listening. Some of them even take notes, this is what I'm supposed to do. But if you tell them, just let go, and it happens by itself, then they just go to sleep, or they just don't want to listen anymore. Why is that? It's because it's very fearful to think this can be so easy, so effortless, so peaceful. And of course I got my inspiration from someone like an Ajahn Chah, who kept on just waving his hand up and down. A leaf on a tree only moves because of the wind. Wind stops, the leaf stops. The leaf doesn't hold itself still. The leaf hasn't got sort of effort. It only moves because something outside of it, causes, make it move. When those causes vanish, the leaf is still. Buddha said that's your mind. It's not really your mind, it's just mind, and it only moves because of wanting. And to me, I've told that simile so many times, but it's very meaningful. And often I remember that simile when I start meditating. This thing which I'm observing is just a leaf on a tree. And if it's moving, it's I want something. I'm interfering. I'm blowing on it. That's a metaphor. And if I just let go, it can move if it wants, it can stay still if it wants. Nothing to do with me. I socially distance myself from my own mind. Sort of, you can understand what I mean there. Which means that you don't do anything. That thing which always wants to involve and to make things happen disappears. And it helps when I feel this is a vacation. It's a holiday. Because we have that concept in Western world and the Asian